Upfronts Week used to be unpredictable and a major highlight in the advertising industry. Think Miley Cyrus smoking weed on the Adult Swim after-party stage, kind of wild. These days, big-name performances still get trotted out, but there's a little less unpredictability in the air and a lot more nostalgia for the good old days, even as newer big tech companies take up a bigger piece of the ad dollar pie. It got us wondering, what is this all for? Welcome to Marketing Brew Weekly, where we dissect the trends and strategies that are surprising and delighting the marketing industry. I'm Katie Hicks, senior reporter.
I'm Jasmine Sheena. I'm Katie's fellow reporter.
And I'm Alyssa Meyers, senior reporter. Let's get into it.
You may have heard some new voices here. Jenny, Mai, and Kelsey are out this week, so I am excited to welcome Alyssa and Jasmine to the studio. So we survived Upfronts Week. We made it.
We did.
Alyssa, I know you covered Fox and Disney. Jasmine, you covered Amazon. I covered YouTube. What were the big themes this year? What did you guys notice that was different from last year?
We always hear so much, I feel like, about the emphasis on legacy from some of these networks. This is not different from last year. I'm not answering your question very well. But I feel like the ones I go to, at least, like Disney, Fox, I would probably lump NBCU in with this. They have such deep catalogs. They've been around forever. And I feel like they're leaning into that element of like, hey, we have this reputation, you know what it's like to work with us, like especially now we hear like economic uncertainty and, you know, the markets are unpredictable and we don't know what's going to happen in a year, so you don't want to lock into these commitments. And I feel like there's a element of like safety with those big legacy companies. But yeah, obviously we have like the Netflixes and the YouTubes and people emphasizing creator work now. So yeah, it runs the gamut kind of these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, the NBCU chairman literally said like, our legacy is our greatest competitive advantage. So I feel like they were celebrating their 100th year anniversary as a platform. There's the 75th anniversary of the Today Show, the 20th anniversary of Real Housewives for Bravo. Like NBC was really leaning hard into their legacy status, but also I feel like across the board, like a lot of these legacy streamers and TV platforms were really talking about like nostalgia in general. Like there were so many reboots and spinoffs announced. What did you guys see?
Oh,
You know, I feel like a lot of the more big tech-oriented players, Amazon, YouTube, they're just, and this isn't necessarily new, but they're just going so hard on trying to do everything. Like when I was at the Amazon one, you know, they've got obviously Prime Video and the movies and TV there, Twitch, all these different segments, and you only have so much time in an upfront. I think it was like, what, an hour 30?
do you?
Sometimes they take way more than that. I would love if it was capped at an hour 30.
Yeah, and like you've got Oprah on stage for like what, I don't know, 10 minutes or something, talking about how her podcast is going to be on their platform. Then they went to Tierra Whack. They had a Twitch stream behind her, you know, just populating comments, and they showed up Twitch for a second. And it's just like, if I was an advertiser, media buyer, whatever, it's just a lot to take in, and everyone's talking about, I'm doing AI generated this, AI generated that.
What's new? Every industry event, they're always like, we've got more AI for you. That's always the announcement.
Oh, yeah. The point about like the spin-offs and stuff like that and the reboots is really interesting to me. I feel like I go to Disney a lot, and I'm not sure if they had any like reboots, but I always think of they have like the franchises, right? They always do a big Marvel section, a big Star Wars section. And so I wouldn't call that stuff reboots, but there's always like another add-on there. And then Fox has been kind of big with that this year. Last year, they were talking about this show that I think they canceled after last year called it was Rescue High Surf, I think. And it was kind of Baywatch-esque, but it wasn't Baywatch.
And then this year they were like, let's just do Baywatch.
Full Baywatch, yeah. That was like a big thing for them on
Baywatch
stage
featuring Livy Dunn.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So talk about creators. I mean, they fully like put an influencer in the cast.
Yeah, I mean, NBC did like a Fast and Furious thing. They're making that into a TV show. Warner Brothers talked about reviving Harry Potter and Gremlins. But to your point, Jasmine, it is really interesting that like at the time that all these tech companies are being like, come to us for podcasts, for all this new media, the old legacy companies are saying like, do you guys want more Gremlins?
And, you know, I think they're all kind of looking at each other, probably being like, what are they doing? Do we emulate that? Like another thing I'm kind of noticing across the board is like everyone's just continuing to lean into like, can I make content off book adaptations? Can I adapt a book that already has a huge insane fan base. Michael B. Jordan announced at Amazon Upfronts they're going to do the fourth wing. They had some other related announcements. Obviously, that's had success on other platforms. I believe Some Right Turned Pretty was a book. It's, I think people are looking for a formula when it's so unpredictable what catches fire with the masses.
Oh, that's so true. The book adaptation, I feel like, is a thing.
It's all over the place.
And like they do tout new shows. Like I feel like they drop trailers a lot, and like there are some new shows that do really well. Warner Brothers had the Heated Rivalry guys on stage to open up.
Not
guys.
the main ones.
Kind
of the secondary
the
guys.
second tier. You cannot get Shane and Ilya at the upfronts, unfortunately.
They're too busy. They're doing so much press and so many events elsewhere. They can't be booked.
Yeah, but it's not all like, that's to say it's not all like reboots or like deep, archival stuff. I feel like, yes, the book adaptations were big. Always, at least at Disney, that's a big thing. They're always like announcing the new shows, and they have really famous casts, and there's all these stars on stage. And so I do feel like there is still a little bit of an element of like, what's new, what's the new trailer, that kind of thing.
It does feel very safe to me. And this is something that we've talked about on the podcast before, where it's like legacy institutions leaning into like existing IP and book adaptations and things like that. Feels to me like they don't want to take a risk on new content, which is interesting that like Heated Rivalry was there, because that was an instance of taking a risk on new IP that like wasn't, I guess it was
but
a book.
Still a
it
book
was a book,
adaptation, yeah.
Right. So I guess all to say, it's a lot of like, they're not afraid, or they are a little bit afraid to like invest in something that they don't know has an existing audience. They know that like these nostalgia plays have existing audiences. They know these books have fans. Like it feels very much like these legacy companies are like, you know what, let's just stick to what we know.
I feel like the live stuff, like the live sports, live entertainment moments, that's very much of like a legacy, almost like safe play. Like that's always going to sell, right? Did you guys hear a lot about that stuff?
Yeah, I feel like even the streamers, like the newer players in the upfronts world, were definitely talking about like sports. It's every year they're talking about sports and live events. And I feel like it's always a competition to see like who can get like the biggest live sporting events.
I feel like everyone's trying to I got one NFL game, like Netflix does its 2 NFL games on Christmas. Oh, I got this game. It's so, I mean, this isn't a new thing, but it's so fragmented, and I don't really see any solution in the industry to that. No surprise there, it's very difficult for a consumer to figure out where to watch which game. And I think another interesting thing is with the executives they have on stage talking about live or whatever, like at Disney's they had Josh D'Amaro, Bob Iger's successor, and that's like the head of this major company with so many different businesses, content, cruises, parks, whatever, showing up, I think, and that makes a statement to advertisers like, this is serious. We have our head honcho here.
So true.
I feel like you're not going to see Jeff Bezos at an Amazon upfronts anytime soon. He's got Met Galas to focus on.
He's busy.
Lachlan Murdoch was at Fox's, though. Like, that's not typical, and that was kind of crazy. I feel like people didn't expect that, and I think you're right, Jasmine, that it is a show of, like, this means something to us.
Yeah, why is that? Why do we feel like the executives are coming out more this year?
It feels more important. Like, for me, it feels like it's more... I don't know, they want upfronts to seem like more of a heavyweight, or maybe like more of their business is in ad sales. It's increasingly important, like if the economy is hard, and maybe that's part of it, is that it gives, I wonder if this is true, like more of a sense of security to buyers to be like, hey, like our number one guy is here. Like,
I wonder too if it's also because YouTube always has their CEO come out, Neil Mohan, and I feel like the tech execs in general are more present. Like you could name Mark Zuckerberg, but can you name the CEO of like of Paramount or anything? Like for some people it might be harder. So maybe they're trying to like compete as tech takes over upfronts a little bit more.
yeah.
Well, speaking of Neil, I feel like creators again, and that's been the trend for a few years. Creators were huge at so many upfronts. I know Amazon sort of touched on that.
Yeah, they have that big
Twitch.
Mr. Beast partnership.
Mr. Beast partnership.
He's everywhere, man.
Televisa Univision also touted their Mr. Beast partnership too. Yeah, he's everywhere. He's all over.
The Mr. Beast Survivor episode, crazy. Fox had Livy
Senior
Dunn.
Beast.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. If you can't have Mr. Beast, like you can get someone. And yeah, we talked about like literally Livy Dunn in Baywatch. Like it does feel like creators are significant.
Even NBCU bringing like Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers out to talk about Las Culturistas. I know Bowen was on SNL, but I feel like as hosts of Las Culturistas, they fall more in that creator realm. And their award show, I feel like, got a lot of buzz on social last year.
Yeah. I feel like that's almost where like the Netflix, YouTube's the more, I don't know, like emerging, I don't know if that's the word still, but like the more techie, new age platforms. I feel like that's kind of where they're winning. I wonder if you guys disagree with me on this, but I feel like the live rights is still where like the legacy networks win. Like you said, Jasmine, you know, Netflix has a few NFL games, and I think that they had Roger Goodell at their upfront last year, but he was at Disney this year because ESPN literally bought the NFL network. Like they have the Super Bowl, like you can't
And like
compete.
the college playoffs too.
They have college football playoffs. They also, they have even more entertainment. I think they have the Grammys and the Oscars. Like Disney, it seemed to me like was killing it on the live rights. I was talking to one of their EVPs from Disney Ads, one of their like sales guys, Adam, before. He was like, it's the year of live. Like they were super leaning into that. And it felt like they had the portfolio to back it up. But I don't know if you guys like heard similar pitches.
It's kind of what NBC did last year where they were like, we're upcoming, we have the Olympics and we have the Super Bowl. And now it's like Disney's turn to come in and be like, no, we're the most relevant. We've got the award shows. They also were like talking about like Dancing with the Stars as a big live event too. Like their shows that like encourage, the Savannah Bananas of it all.
On Disney Plus. Yes, they did a big live. They made a big deal of it.
Yeah, it's almost like whoever gets
but like
whoever gets the rights to the most live events, I feel like always is proud of it, and they always make that a huge feature of their presentation.
Yes.
And on the creator front, I thought it was interesting. Amazon literally, in their transitions from different announcements, they had Paige DeSorbo, Summer House Alum, a big creator in her own right. She was doing like she was helping transition in like these videoed segments with a Twitch executive. She's big on Amazon Live. Obviously, they're trying to promote Twitch, which was an interesting way to, I sort of think, promote that. And then Alex Cooper, she was at a different upfront, but
She's at YouTube, yeah.
She's at YouTube, and which I thought was interesting because that bombshell Bloomberg story talking about all the issues in Unwell was interesting. She was there. But she
pivot to TV, pivot to video. The whole thing that YouTube was really pitching this year was like that they want to be a liaison between creators and advertisers when like Amazon Prime and Netflix are offering creators like upfront deals and being like, we'll just give you a large sum of cash to come to our platform. YouTube is like, we will help finance your shows, we'll help you create original content as long as you stay with us here at YouTube. They had Alex Cooper, they had Trevor Noah, they had I think it's Kareem Rama, from Subway Takes. He's making a new show, or he has a new show, but they helped him like find financiers for the creation of it, where he's interviewing like cab drivers in New York. So yeah, YouTube was definitely like leaning in on original series. And it's also something that I saw with just like micro dramas and stuff too, like creating original content with creators. Televisa, Univision. Also, I think they said they're going to go from 40 micro dramas up to 100.
Jesus.
It's all about getting creators and getting like original content out of them.
I wonder too if that's like almost a newer age upfronts thing, where I think we were talking about this earlier, Katie, where I was kind of like, what are they even selling at upfronts anymore? And it seems like it could be that kind of content, because I know, at least for me, like I cover sports, and mostly when I talk about big sports deals like Super Bowls or World Cups or stuff like that, like those advertisers are usually advertising in those big events because they're locked into big like network wide 2, 4, 6, 8, 10-year deals with some, like maybe some of those are getting done at upfronts, but you know, I see Disney, ESPN like touting the Super Bowl and stuff. I don't really think they're like selling the Super Bowl at an upfront, you know, like they're already in those conversations. So I don't know, that feels like something that's maybe changing a little bit about like the nature of upfronts.
Yeah.
To that point, it's like, I feel like people just do this dog and pony show because it's been the tradition. Yeah. And I mean, not everybody does. Like Paramount, I think, usually does like client dinners. And it's like you're just whining and dining people. Like Amazon always does a lavish, last year too, they did a lavish after party at the New York Public Library. I didn't go this year, went last year. Insane food, honestly fine dining level.
Not excellent. Could have been better.
It is just like a whole put on show, you know, like they do the concerts, you know, like Disney had Olivia Rodrigo and Amazon had Diplo, right? Like,
I think that's my question is like, to your point, Alyssa, like how relevant are upfronts anymore? Is it really about just like a flashy performance for advertisers who are already working with the platform? Because I feel like when we go, we always talk about how like the audience is kind of like, it seems like a lot of clients who are featured in the case studies that are presented, or the agency people who may have already bought something like the Super Bowl placement, and like, are they really there for new announcements, or is it really just about like the party of it all?
yeah. It's cool because, like, I don't know, there is a little bit of like a fun factor to it, like
It's
you're
fun.
saying.
I
You get to go to a nice dinner and you get to go to the Olivia Rodrigo show and dance around with the 60-year-old dude in the suit next
There's
to you.
nothing like watching all the people in suits dance stiffly to whatever young pop star they bring out on the stage. Like,
Yeah. But when I texted that video to my friends, they were like, no way you're seeing Olivia Rodrigo right now. Like, there is every year I'm like, upfronts, blah, it's a slog. But then I'm like, it's kind of cool that I'm in the room with Robert Downey Jr. right now. Like,
Right.
So there's a little bit of a fun factor, but I also do think that, like, it's worth noting that it is, like, old fashioned. Like, I don't even know. I feel like the industry is getting younger. Naturally, it feels worth saying. Like I was telling you earlier, I have this friend who's a media buyer at an agency. We used to work at Warner Brothers. He's 25 years old. And like I was talking to him about upfronts last week and I was like, oh, you know, did you go to upfronts? And it took him a second. He was like, what? Oh, yeah, no. Like,
oh, that old thing.
but like he has the money in his hands, you know? And like I just wonder as like the next generation of execs, you know, like people like that are going to be fairly high up in 5 or 10 years or so. And the people who are 60 now are going to be out. Like, sorry to say it, but like if upfronts are only relevant to an older crowd, what happens in 5 years?
It is interesting because I feel like this year, more social media posts about upfronts than I did in years past, where it was like, Kaya Gerber walks the red carpet. And like,
oh, yeah.
And I was thinking like, oh, does an audience outside of the marketing industry know what upfronts is? Do they have any idea what, but I feel like I saw things on like Twitter and Reddit and like TikTok of people talking about upfronts, but maybe not necessarily knowing what it is. It feels like that could be a sign that like ultimately what this is just like who can get the biggest names to show up on their stage or show up at their red carpet and get attention online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I feel like they're losing like the meaning of it. Like definitely if like no one that I see posting on TikTok or whatever about upfronts actually knows what the upfronts is. So yeah, it feels like it almost has a whole different purpose now than like selling ads. It almost feels like more of like a brand play.
Yeah.
And it feels like kind of like something that would have happened during Mad Men.
Yeah.
I don't know, we're just so digital now. It's fun. I mean, it's cool to see people. I'm not going to totally hate on it.
Yeah.
There's just like certain things, like we're all like fairly young. Like there's certain things I was just like, why do we have new fronts and up fronts? Like,
Well, especially when there's overlap too, right? Like YouTube had their new fronts and they had their Brandcast upfronts event. And it's like, does everybody need to be at both? Like Tubi is another one that did both. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah, well,
it's
Tubi is Fox
as
at
part
the
of Fox,
upfront.
right.
Yeah, but it does all feel like so much, like so repetitive.
And I feel like with how many events there are, it creates this feeling of like needing to have something to announce or needing to show off. And I wonder if that kind of dilutes the like experience overall, because it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not expecting a huge announcement at these events because they just announced something for new fronts and now upfronts. They're probably going to announce something for Cannes. Maybe they did something at South by. It's like there are so many events that brands are at and streamers and networks are at now that I feel like how do you have something that breaks news at every single one of these?
They pull out little things, you know. I feel like what I always hear again on the sports front at upfronts is like the breaking news at whatever it is like, here's the matchup for the Thanksgiving Day NFL game, you know, and it's like feels kind of minor, but like you said, they have to spread that stuff out. And then when this stuff gets covered in the more generic press, like not the trades, no one is like, here's the matchup Disney announced and it's upfront, which is blah, blah, blah. Like no one cares that they made that announcement at upfront.
Right. They could have just posted it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is interesting. I feel like, I mean, when it comes to industry events, do you guys feel like upfronts is the big one to watch, or are there other events where you're like, this is the one that like, there's usually the best breaking news to come out of it?
just this week, for example, as someone who covers tech, Google is doing Google I/O and Google Marketing Live. I mean, I/O is obviously less marketing related, but if you're like a media buyer on a Meta or a Google, they're like announcing so much stuff all the time. And I don't know that I would say the announcements around new fronts or upfronts are that much more crazy. To your point, like, I think sometimes they'll dress it up in very professional, like AI enhanced stuff like that, like language to make it sound really like cutting edge stuff. But everyone's just trying to have something to announce. So I think this is one of the few things, though, that is almost like a monoculture in advertising where so many different kinds of companies are participating. Obviously not every, like Warner Brothers isn't going to do like a Google Marketing Live type thing. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand with things, is like
more relevant for maybe older brands, not so much the tech companies.
Yeah, and the big events, I mean, again, like we talked about, there's a coolness to being like, yeah, I went, you don't tell your friends, like, I was at Upfronts, but you're like, yeah, I was in the room with all these famous people.
I saw Chapel Roan, and I saw some ad offerings.
Oh, where? You're never going to believe the new ad format I heard about. And there are certain events like that, like Cannes, like you've been to Cannes too, Katie, like that's obviously so fun. You're not going to be like, it's not worth it. Story ideas, breaking news, you get to go, drink champagne on the beach in France. Like, that's amazing. Not going to complain about that. So I feel like these big industry events, like, they're always going to be fun. There's always going to be some relevancy in them. I personally, at least on my beat, I really like the more niche, like targeted, smaller events. Like I'm thinking there's this one that I cover every year in New York called the Business of Women's Sports Summit. Super narrow, but like so relevant to me. And I find that like the news and the case studies that come out of that and the people that I meet there and even the people on stage, like they're all really cool women athletes. Like Sue Bird is always there. And that's one where I'm always like, this is so cool and so useful and so relevant to me. And it's so much smaller than like some of these big things, but I feel like there's also a lot of value in some of these events that are not an upfront. Like Chapel Roan isn't there, no, but it's like really cool and really relevant to what I'm covering. And sometimes with these big ones, like a CES, there's so much stuff. It's hard to figure out. Like
it's hard to break through too. Yeah.
I think I felt this when I went to CES, I think last year. I could have had this conversation with you in New York. Yeah, it's not the same. We're not all in the same room. There is something to that, and listening to a panel, whatever. And they are saying insightful things in most panels, but I'm like, I didn't need to fly to Vegas and stay in a hotel and do all this. It's just one of those things the industry has always done.
Totally. Yeah. Stop doing your conferences in Vegas. I don't want to go to Vegas for work anymore. All the conferences are in Vegas.
But if you do your meeting here, you can't go to Caesars after.
Yeah, literally. Like, oh no, yeah.
I feel like for me, covering like creator marketing and social media, I am curious to see the continued growth of creators at Cannes, because I feel like that's grown in recent years. So I'm excited to see what that looks like this year. But yeah, I agree. I feel like the news for like my beat doesn't necessarily come out of these huge legacy events. They come out of like smaller events, kind of as other brands like to know it. This social platform has started hosting their own version of upfronts for creators, and it's like that's interesting to me, is how some of these more niche areas are creating their own events, and what does that space look like?
And I feel like that's where you meet people too. Like at a huge upfront when everyone's sat there for 2 hours and then you get out, like it's just so much, it's overwhelming, and I feel like people are just like tired and want to get out of there. And yeah, at some of the smaller events, like it's people who really care and they're really locked in, and just like a smaller group, so it's easier to like chat and mingle and stuff, which I feel like is pretty important in terms of the actual deals getting done too. And like for me too, on the sports beat, I also look to events like the Super Bowl, like All-Star weekends, especially NBA, I know is becoming more of like a business forum. So yeah, I feel like they're like, even we're talking kind of about reporters and networking and getting to know people and getting story ideas, but even in terms of like where ad deals are getting done, I feel like there are other places, right, that like aren't just the upfront anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to have a 3-martini dinner, lockdown, a $500K commitment.
The Mad Men days.
John Hamm.
If only we could. Well, I don't know if I actually would have wanted to work in that era.
Yeah,
It would have been kind of hard as a woman.
Yeah, women had a tough. I take that back.
Give me a 3-martini lunch, though. I'll take that aspect.
Yeah, that's so true. We are always advocating for that at Marketing Brew.
I did want to say, I think one other thing that would be interesting to watch going forward is, I think a couple groups did like literal, like Spotter. I think Forbes, of all groups, did a creator-related upfront thingy last year. I'm wondering if those will, given these like so many people still care about creators, and that's obviously its own economy. If those like literally from creator agencies or creator groups, if those upfronts will continue to grow or proliferate.
Yeah. Or if they start to get absorbed into the bigger events too, if people see that and they're like, let's just bring them on in. But we will have to wait and see. Well, thank you for joining us today. And if you have thoughts on the longevity and relevance of upfronts, please email us at mkbw@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. We'll see you next week.